This is going to be the first in a set of videos on Google Forms. So being the first, this is the one that's going to cover some of the basics of Google Forms. To start, I'm going to take a look at making a form. So to make a form, you either go to the My Drive button or the New button, either one. And you click on that, and on New File, you find the one that says Google Forms, and you choose that, and it will create a Google form for you. Now, I am going to title this form so that I have it saved in my documents under some name. I'm going to call it Demo Form 1 so that I have that saved. Now, as soon as you title or as soon as you name the document, it will use that name as the title of your document. If you don't want that to be the title, you can change the title to something else, and it won't affect the name of the document. These two things don't have to be the same, but the default is to put them in as the same. Now, in addition to that, on the form there's a title, and then there's also a description. So if you want to put any directions on the form, this might be a good place to put it. You could add directions or do anything that you want to let your students know before they use the form, whether it's going to be for a quiz or whether it's just going to be an informal thing that they're doing. Now, before I actually get into the making of the forms, I want to talk about some of the form settings that are at the top and also some of the form settings that are at the bottom. Now, if you look at the top here and you read each of these, they talk about the different options that you have for forms. So the first one is that it requires a login to view. So if you want your students to have their login, then that's a requirement that you can set. Automatically collect the respondents' usernames. I always do this also. When they're logged into their email, so you require it in the first one, then when you do the second one, it will put their usernames on the response page, so you can always identify which student is which. Another reason to check this box is because when this box is checked, it will give the students an option at the end of the form to send the form to themselves. Let me go to a live form and show you what that looks like. So this is the live form for what I've been doing just now, and there's a little checkbox at the end that says send me a copy of my responses. If a student checks this, then the form will send them an email with all of their answers to the questions. So it's kind of like them getting the quiz back. The only difference is that they don't get the graded part of it. So they can't see what they got right or wrong, but they can see what all of their information was for that form response. The biggest thing is if you choose to do this, you need to make sure, one, that your students have email, and so all middle and high schools are set with that. At the elementary level, some elementary schools have email turned off, so if you do, then you can't use this feature. Another thing is that you need to make sure that if you're going to do this, you have your students check the box. If the student doesn't check, they won't get the responses sent to them. So you need to make sure that that's done. Showing a progress bar at the bottom is if you have multiple pages on your form, and we'll get into that in a later video if you want to do that. The next one is allow only one response per student. If you want the student to only have one response, you can choose this. If you want them to do multiple responses for one reason or another, then you would leave this unchecked. The last one here is shuffle question order. This is a fairly new feature. If you want the test or quiz or whatever it is that you're making to shuffle the question order, you can choose this and it will randomly move the order around. Now, even though it randomly fits the order in place, when your students answer the questions on your answer document, all of the questions will be in the order that you put them on this page. So you don't have to worry about the random questions messing up your answer document. Those will still be the same. And then at the bottom, there's a couple of additional things as well. The first one is this sentence that says your response has been recorded. When a form is completed and submitted, there's always a statement at the end, and you can edit that statement. A couple of things that teachers have done to edit this statement is they've put the answers on here so that the students can then know what the answers were for the questions. Another thing that teachers can do is they can give an assignment down here. So once you're finished completing this form, I want you to do this task. Go to this web page and fill out this information, or go to your classroom page and do something. Now after that, there's a couple of choices. Show a link to submit another response. If you want multiple responses from your students, you can keep this open. The next one is publish and show a public link to the form results. If this is something where you want your students to see the results, you can choose this. Now, you only do that if you want the students to see all of the results. If you're giving a quiz, you wouldn't want to show this because it would show your student all of the other students' responses, and that's no good. And then the last one is allow responders to edit responses after submitting. If you want them to have the opportunity to go back, you can check this, and then they can go back and do that. And then, of course, send form. That's what you would hit at the end when you're all done and you're ready to send the form out to your students. Let me talk about the different types of form questions. The first thing is there's always a basic question set up and ready to go, and this default is multiple choice. You can change this if you want to any of the different choices for defaults. The first one is text. I always like my first two questions to be last name and first name. So I just say last name, and then I click done. And as long as the question type is text, then what it'll do is it'll just make a box for them to fill out the last name. And then I could do first name as well. Now, if you click on add item, so down here where it says add item, if you click on that, it will add a new item. And it will always default to the same type of item as the last one. And if you want to change that, you can do this. There are many choices that you can make, and I'm going to go through these one at a time on a separate form where I've already done them. But there's text, paragraph text, multiple choice, check boxes, choose from a list, scale, and grid. If instead of adding an item and then changing the question type up here, if you want to choose the question type before you add the item, you can click on this arrow right here, and all of your basic choices for question types are here, and the advanced ones are scale, grid, and date and time. It also gives you some options for layout, and I'm not going to cover these in this video, but in a future video I'll cover the different layout choices. Okay, let's actually go and demo some of these different types of questions so that you can look at it. And I will take a look at those different question types in the next forms video.